So here we have the second Rainmaker, Ion Storm. Now, Ion Storm, I don't believe has ever had an official toy model released before. There may be convention or BotCon exclusives existing of him. I want to say there is a repaint of the Classics mold, but I could be mistaken. Pretty sure there is, though. But for an official Hasbro/Takara released in stores, I don't think there's ever been an Ion Storm. These characters were actually not named through the packaging, as most characters are, but Hasbro used to have, I think, a Facebook page where you could ask Vector Sigma, a Transformer character, questions about the Transformer universe and storylines and whatnot. Don't think it's maintained still today, but it might be. And after Acid Storm was released, and the Transformers universe, quote-unquote 2.0 line, Vector Sigma was asked what were the names of his two companions. And so it's Vector Sigma, therefore, that named these characters. But this was Vector Sigma questionnaire, questions and answers, was actually officially maintained by Hasbro. So technically, everything on there is considered canon or official, at least until someone comes out and contradicts it anyway. But as you can see, the evidence of that, this guy is indeed named Ion Storm on his package, or Seeker Ion Storm. Not sure why that is, if they couldn't trademark Ion Storm. Usually, however, they face a situation like this, Hasbro will refer to the character as Decepticon Ion Storm or whatever. So interesting they went with Seeker. Don't know the significance, just an observation. For those curious, Ion Storms are actually also a real thing. A space-type phenomenon, however, rather than a atmospheric one. But again, he's not technically a jet, but, a kind of starfighter. Ion Storms are most famously probably known from Star Trek. The classic Mirror Mirror involves an Ion Storm-caused teleportation accident, which results in some of the Enterprise crew ending up in a mirror universe. However, as I said, Ion Storms aren't actually just in the realm of science fiction. They do exist. However, their official name is a coronal mass ejection, because Ion Storms, in real life anyway, are caused by solar flares coming from stars, such as our sun, which do emit ionized particles, which are capable of disabling electrical equipment. This has actually happened on Earth on at least one occasion during the very early days of the telegraph system. The planet, or at least part of the planet, at least the North American continent, was hit with an actual ion storm that disabled the entire network. To my knowledge, this has never happened again, but theoretically, of course, it's completely possible. The planet could be hit by another ion surge. The magnetic field protects Earth from the worst of it, but a powerful enough one, as did happen, can, at least to some degree, pierce through it. I'm told that our electrical grid, modern day, is actually not shielded for such an event, on the account of it being so rare. So if it does happen, once again, everything will go down. People occasionally try to get Congress and such in the U.S. to enact proper shielding for, because it is actually possible to protect our electrical equipment, appliances, and whatnot from ion storms, but it does recall overhauling and some remodeling, and no one wants to spend the money. So, uplifting thought of the day. But speaking here of the Transformer Ion Storm, who in fiction possesses the ability to actually create an EMP burst, which is essentially what an ion storm does, disabling electrical equipment within a radius of himself, making him actually quite dangerous to other Transformers. Although supposedly if he overdoes it, he can actually disable himself as well. But again, these models are functionally identical to each other, so there's not a whole lot of difference. He's essentially blue everywhere Acid Storm was green. He's got a more silver battle damage as opposed to the ash gray that Acid Storm has. But you can see he's got the sort of engine intakes here, painted dark gray, the light gray waist, the orange fox cockpit, the black head, silver face, and the red eyes, again, through the light piping, unfortunately. The gray trim on the wings with the purple Decepticon symbol, if you can make that out. He's got the gray in the wrists and the ankles, the same black engine exhaust on his foot with the gray heels. His rifles here, as it is difficult to refer to these as null cannons, they do look more like a battle rifle, are again solid blue, which I do feel unfortunate considering how solid blue he is. Would have been nice to have at least a little detail on those guns. They certainly could have saved enough on the paint for that. Again, you can see what's the real cockpit, if you will, back here. I do like how they managed to incorporate these sort of pylons on the shoulders. That's a classic look. It's put behind him rather than on his shoulders. But since he doesn't turn into a jet, they aren't actually the same intakes. He's actually formed the fuselage, or the nose cone of the starfighter mode, which is actually fairly clever. So credit where credit is due in that regard. But if there's any retooling to this figure, I can't detect it. Even the face to me seems to be the same expression. But regardless, like I said, that is how they are in the original 80s cartoon. So definitely you have to like that aesthetic if you're going to buy these guys and spend the $80 that they are in store. And I'm sure they'll be more expensive online afterwards on the secondary markets. So not really a whole lot of point going through his articulation. It's the second verse, same as the first, as they say. The ball joint head, the swivel for the shoulder and it bends out a little bit. There's the bicep, double jointed elbow, wrist, waist. He can do a split, bicep rotation, knee bend, and the slight, somewhat pitiful ankle tilt. But, I mean, gets the job done for at least your regular average pose. The guns, too, as I may not have mentioned before, technically swivel on here. I don't necessarily know why you'd want to swivel them in that fashion. Or like you just keep them up with the arm for the more classic look. Although, like I said, these look more like battle rifles than null cannons. So possibly a better look may actually be putting them on the arm there. So as I said, discounting any convention exclusives, there's no official release for Ion Storm prior to this. However, there are actually a multitude of other blue Seeker-type jets among the ranks of the Decepticons. Not necessarily sure why. Blue just seems to be a popular color with whoever's in charge of coloring the Seeker types. Possibly because of the blue skies, or maybe because Transformer toys are for boys, as the rather short-sighted Hasbro executives back in the day were often quoted as saying. So here we have the original blue Seeker, Thundercracker. Again, this is the Classics version. I don't own the original Diaclone toy. And over here is Dirge. This is retooled from the Classic mold, but actually was not released as part of Classic. It was released as part of the universe, Transformers universe, quote-unquote 2.0. And he's one of the cone heads. Now, that, if you own the original toys, the cone heads were actually head-wise identical to the original Seekers. But you could actually choose to leave the cone on, as their robot heads are stored inside the fuselage of the jet. So in order to make the cone heads a little bit more different from the original 3 Seekers, they deliberately are mistransformed in the show to give them a slightly different head. You'll notice they still kind of have the same face. In this regard, Dirge here, the wings unfortunately don't fold back, which would be nice. Maybe that's accurate to the original, but it makes him difficult to stand next to anybody else. He needs a lot of elbow room, or knee room, or ankle room, however you want to refer to this. But you can see also that these guys have a bit more of a splash of color. Thundercracker is primarily blue, but he's got quite a lot of silver, although interestingly, mostly in his robot mode. Very little silver in his jet mode, but quite a bit of black, and then he's got some red trim thrown in there for fun as well. But you'll note he has essentially Starscream's head. Black helmet, silver face, red eyes. Dirge, on the other hand, is also a blue Transformer with quite a bit of black, but very, very little silver. Kind of, at least on this version, more of a dark gray and a couple of patches, and that's really it. But then his wings are quite randomly orangish brown color, burnt orange perhaps. And little stripes here and there just to flush it out a little bit. Now they molded the face to be a little bit more different here, which I appreciate. The Classics version give it more of a gray than silver, but you can still see it's essentially the same face, the red eyes. So the way to tell Ion Storm apart, should you have identical models, again, these Classics universe models are actually blue. Now, I called Thundercracker a Classics. It's because he's repainted from the Classics and is otherwise unaltered. He actually was not released as part of Transformers Classics. Thundercracker is the least popular of the three original Seekers and typically gets his colorization last. Usually you'll get a Starscream first because he's the most famous, obviously, and the most well-liked, most recognized character. Then usually Skywarp gets made second. He's got the very distinctive black look with the purple trim, the cool teleportation power, and is more well-known and more popular with the fans. Thundercracker is the third guy who's blue and loud. And there's not too much else to his character. So he usually gets repainted last, is often a shelf warmer, unlike the other two. So while he is identical to the Classics version, he actually was released as part of the Transformers Universe 2.0 line because the Classics had actually been canceled despite it doing quite well. Essentially, it was folded into the Transformers universe. And then Dirge, like I said, was actually a retool and repainted version also released in the same line. They're both Dulexes, hence why they are smaller than Ion Storm here, who is, with Acid Storm, of course, a Mega Class Transformer. But as you can see, Ion Storm is, again, I'd say almost monochrome. He's pretty much just straight up blue. In this case, a lighter shade than these two. I don't actually know if Ion Storm is a lighter shade. It's been a while since I've actually seen the original series, so I don't quite remember if he is actually a lighter shade or not. This could just be the Siege color scheme. It just has him a little bit lighter. I don't own a Siege version of Thundercracker. Not actually sure if it's been released or yet. Anyway, there's the difference between the three of them. Alright, so let's get him transformed then.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
So again, there's a whole lot of difference between Acid Storm and Ion Storm here. They both turn to the same sort of pyramidical starfighter look. Again, you can see primarily blue. They give touches of gray, and then of course the sort of silvery battle damage, and the Decepticon logo. Interestingly, the logos aren't on the wings, but on the side here, which is unusual in Transformer design. Usually, if something's going to have wings, the symbols are going to end up more properly on the wings themselves. But again, overall, as long as you like futuristic, doesn't actually exist vehicle designs, this isn't really a bad one. Again, got the same problem of the fake cockpit ending up on the back here because it's got nowhere else to go. So as long as you are not planning to display them from behind, it's not a problem. Again, underneath, again, some attention to detail certainly exists here, but you can see it's mostly robot. And not really any articulation, as is typical for vehicle Transformers. And just to compare him to the other blue jet Transformers that I have here, we've got the Thundercracker model over here. As you can see, most of the silver has indeed disappeared, but he still has bits of white. These are actually white trim along his wings and fins, but white, silver, fairly close. A bit of red, interesting bit of black on the tails to match the nose cone. And then Dirge over here is primarily also a blue with black trim, but then got the bright orange wings with the red and white stripes on them. I always find it interesting that Dirge doesn't actually have proper tail fins, instead essentially having fins at the end of his back wings instead. It's an interesting variation to make him a little bit different. He also essentially has the tail fins here that Thundercracker has in the back, are up in the front with him, the larger wings behind. Again, both of them are darker blue, especially Thundercracker. And Ion Storm is the lighter blue, but that, again, may be more of a Siege thing. It may not be universal. But that basically covers Ion Storm. So let's get to the last member of the legendary Rainmakers.